Hello and welcome to the channel. Today's video is all things goth, or should I call it the 13 goths. So I'm going to pick 13 bands that arguably either are goth, could be goth, have goth elements, or might actually say they're nothing to do with goth at all, but in my opinion are gothesque. So my journey with goth, so obviously in the 80s there was lots of musical kind of tribes, if you like. You know, there were mods, there was the rockers, you know, the new romantics, that type of stuff. So I was a teenager in the 80s, so initially I wanted to be a denim and leather clad motorbiker, and then somewhere in the mid 80s, when a certain single that's over my shoulder came out, I had a brief flirtation with all things goth, and for a few months I desperately wanted to be a goth. Now obviously blonde hair doesn't go with the goth look. I can't do a Robert Smith and have big bushy hair, so didn't last long, but although I couldn't get the look, I did enjoy the music, and still do to this day. So I've got 13 different bands, and I'm going to start with what I would call the godfathers of goth, who are probably for me the originators of goth, and in particular one song. I'm going to finish with what I think is the ultimate goth band, so that's where we're going. And I'm just checking I've actually got the records. So I've got some in front of me, some behind me, and some on the side. So without further ado, the first goth band that I would call an essential kind of goth, from 1979, Bauhaus. So in particular the track Bela Lugosi's Dead, which is about 9 minutes long. It's worth getting this album. This is a compilation called 79 to 1983, because this has the singles on it that may not be on some of the studio albums. So there's a nice gatefold on that one. So if you want to start off with a goth kind of taster, I don't think you can go wrong with Bauhaus. They've got that kind of Bowie-esque kind of vocal delivery. Obviously they were the house band in the film The Hunger that David Bowie was in, where he plays a vampire that's aging, and obviously they recorded Ziggy Stardust as well. But fabulous album this. If you're on the used market, if you can spot one of these, they're well worth getting, because it's beautifully done with the foil kind of colour on Beggar's Archive. But great album. So the more modern version is this one, which is called Crackle, the best of Bauhaus. This has a slightly different mix of Bela Lugosi's Dead, which kind of annoyed me a tad. But there you go. That's not a bad compilation either. That's like I think it was a CD that got put out on vinyl. So there you go. So a couple of Bauhaus comps there. But if you're going to go as an entry point to goth, I think that's possibly the way to start. Okay, so we might now have some bands that started as goth and maybe didn't end up as goth, but for me this is the period when I got into these bands. So this is one band, but they started off as the Southern Death Cult. So this is Ian Astbury, but no Billy Duffy when they did this one. This is like a compilation of singles and radio sessions and stuff like that. Didn't make any proper albums. They briefly then became Death Cult, which has just finally had an issue, and again, couple of singles, couple of session tracks, but that's that. And they eventually dropped the death and just became the Cult. So their first album proper, and this is a great album, very much an essential purchase in my opinion. So this is Dreamtime. The big songs on this were obviously Spirit Walker was a single. We've also got Go West on here, but from start to finish I think this is a really good album, particularly like the opener Horse Nation, and then the closer Bad Medicine Waltz is like almost like a spaghetti western-esque kind of song. Flower in the Desert, it's just a great album this is. So initially, the initial copies of this also came with a free live album, and if you were clever you could get it on import in a really nice kind of cover. So So this is, I think, Canadian issue. So this is live at the Lyceum in 1984, and that's worth buying for the Bradford accent of Ian Astbury throughout this album. It's absolutely brilliant. I don't think it's supposed to be comical, but when he swears, it's like a Bernard Manning on doing a goth band. It's well funny, but great music. But yeah, so that's there. But for me, the album that started it all, thanks to the single She Sells Sanctuary, and then its follow-up, which I loved even more, which was Rain, has to be this one. This is Love. So my original's up there, played to death, to be honest with you. So this is a nice kind of reissue that came out not long ago on red vinyl. I absolutely love this album. This is probably one of my all-time favourite albums, and there's the Billy Duffy haircut that I did try and gravitate towards in the 80s when I couldn't do the Robert Smith. But of all the albums I'm going to show you today, I think this is certainly in the top 3 that I'm going to show. So if you haven't heard this and you think the Cults are like a rock band, as in Love Removal Machine or Sonic Temple, go and check this out. This is the sweet point where they were moving away from that very earthy goth sound of Dreamtime to a more kind of rocky approach, but it's still a goth album at heart. So for me, the big song on this is one called The Phoenix, which opens side 2. It's an absolutely mad guitar song, one of the best bits of guitar playing that I think any band managed to come up with in the 80s. I absolutely love that song. You've also got a couple of slower songs in Brother Wolf, Sister Moon, again, talking about spaghetti western themes. That's a fabulous kind of epic song. And the final track, Black Angel, is a great one as well. But the whole album's brilliant. You have obviously got She Sells Sanctuary on there, Rain, which is a big single, and Revolution was another single. Word on the drumming on this one, they lost their drummer when they after the She Sells Sanctuary single. So this is the drummer on this is Mark Brzezinski, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Big Country, and the drumming on this album is absolutely superb. And I also need to shout out the title track Love, which is a proper rocker. So if you haven't got any cults in your life, please go out and get this one, because it's an absolutely fabulous album, and has recently been reissued on nice red vinyl if you want a posh copy. So the Cults were my entry point to goth. I kind of picked up some more contemporary bands that I'll come on to in a moment, but I also then went back a little bit. So I've just done a big video on this band, a ranking video, so I'm not going to spend too much longer, but you can't talk goth without talking The Cure, can you? So A Forest is without a doubt one of the creepiest little songs known to man. So this is the second album. That's a fab album. They then got even more gothy with, I think, one of the pinnacle of goth, which is Faith. So this is just a fabulous album. So if you haven't got any Cure in your life and you want to go on the darker side, these 3 albums are where to start. And when I did my Cure video, the one that probably caused the most consternation in terms of the ranking was this one, because I put this below Blood Flowers, and that caused a little bit of a sting. So this is Pornography, and it's I think for a lot of Cure fans, this is the dark goth high point of their things. For me, it's so funny, when I listened to all 13 Cure albums, but this was the one that went down and some of the others went up. So but I think the thing with Cure, all the albums are pretty good, to be honest with you, but something had to finish somewhere, so I think this was mid-pack, and apologies for those who love this album, but if you want a Cure goth album, this be the one, I think. So if Robert Smith was the male pin-up of goth, then obviously Siouxsie Sioux of Siouxsie and the Banshees fame was definitely the female pin-up, wasn't she, and had that goth look. So if you're going to go with the Banshees prime goth, this is Juju. It's got things like Spellbound on it and stuff like that. So I mean, you know, look at the tracks here: Spellbound, Halloween, Night Shift, Voodoo Dolly. I mean, it is a goth album, isn't it, really? So well worth getting. But there is a little link up for those that aren't aware that Robert Smith helped the Siouxsie and the Banshees out when a guitarist left and played on some of their albums, and in particular this live album. And this is fabulous. If you can get a copy of this, I think this got a Record Store Day reissue not long ago. This is a Nocturne double live album at the Albert Hall. For those in the UK, Sky Arts will occasionally show this concert as well, tucked away in the late kind of shifts. But there's Robert on the back over there. But this is a fabulous album. So yeah, if you've not heard this, this is well worth getting. So yeah, so the Banshees, fabulous band. A bit more contemporary. This is a band that I've only got on CD, so don't know why, but I very rarely see their vinyl at what I would call a reasonable price. So two from the Nephilim here, Fields of the Nephilim. So that's I think the debut Dawn Razor, and this is the one that's the connoisseur's choice, I think, just called the Nephilim, which I keep trying to find, but it's always really expensive. So for now, my CDs will have to do, but they took the goth stuff to an extreme, and for me were a little bit derivative of another band that's coming out, but certainly well worth checking out if you like that kind of deep growly voice. Not quite sure where goth is now, because it's funny, of all the looks that are out there, the goth look has probably survived. You see a lot of younger folk in the big leather black coats and the heavy black eyeliner, both men and women, and it's almost like the cult that's survived. But musically, I don't know about how many modern goth bands are there. I think the music may have gravitated towards the like heavy metal, death metal kind of side, as opposed to this kind of Bowie-esque kind of theatrical goth. So yeah. But I don't know. If there's any more modern goths out there, if there's any bands that you think that we should pick up on us, for us older folk, please put something in the comments. So another one that's, are they goth? Are they not goth? They're definitely goth-esque, aren't they? So I'm going to go with the Cocteau Twins. This is their debut, Garlands, and if you listen to that, that's a really spooky kind of synthy album. And what I like about these is those heavy kind of bass lines that kind of chug along, and for me there's definitely similarities between the Cocteau Twins and the early Cure stuff, say, for instance, but obviously you've got the wonderful vocals of Liv Fraser, so that's a good one. It's Garlands. And then this is pretty good as well. This is the second album, which my brain is telling me can't say. Head Over Heels, I think that one is called. It's that minimal kind of packaging on 4AD. They don't give a lot away, do they? But this is definitely goth, I think. So this is This Mortal Coil, which the reason I put that after the Cocktails is Liz Fraser sings on this. It's got the immortal song to the siren. I think the Chemical Brothers sampled that as a Tim Buckley song, Holocaust. And that was put together by, I think, the label head. They got like loads of guest singers in and stuff like that. But none more goth than This Mortal Coil. This one, are they goth? Are they not goth? They've got the dark leather jacket and the big hair. But Psycho Candy, the Jesus and Mary Train, would that be a goth album? It's Gothesque, isn't it? It's dark, it's loud, it's quite abrasive. I'll show you the vinyl on this, because this is quite beautiful. Look at it. Get ready. Look at that. So yeah, so that's very nice splatter vinyl from the Jesus and Mary Candy. So Psycho Candy. So the follow-up Darklands was the more accessible entry point, but if you want to just be deafened for a while, I'd certainly give that a go. Is it goth? I don't know, maybe. Right, so this I think is definitely goth. So this is an Australian band, and they are The Church. So this is their debut. Jingly jangly pop, but with a darker edge. Got the Blurred Crusade there, and I think this one might have been a comp of singles and stuff, Remote Luxury. So I do like the Church. I think the album for me that drew me into them was Starfish and the opening track Destination, but they were more kind of going down the U2-y kind of mode then, but I think their early stuff's very gothesque. Now, I said, is there any modern goth bands? The most modern one that I've picked up on, a fabulous little band, and they are called The Horrors. Now, if you look at that cover, they are definitely goth, aren't they? That's the whole goth look there. So this is their debut album, which is pretty good. But if you want to have an even better album by theirs, where they go very much influenced by The Cure. This one, Primary Colours. I mean, from the artwork there, it kind of gives it away, doesn't it? But that is an absolutely brilliant album. So if you fancy something a bit darker but a bit more modern, that's definitely one that I would suggest is worth a listen to. So getting towards the end now, so we're going to before we build up to what I consider the ultimate goth band. This lot were a bit gothy. These are like All About Eve. This is their debut, and they also had a bit of a folky element. So the big hit single off this was Martha's Harbour, which is not really representative of the album. But you know, this is good. Flowers in Her Hair, She Moves, Wild Hearted Woman. That was a great song. In the Clouds, In the Meadow. Really good album that was. I saw them live. A fabulous band. And they came to prominence because the singer Julian Regan did a few backing vocals for this lot, which is The Mission. So I saw both All About Eve and The Mission live in the late 80s. Fabulous bands. This is The Mission's debut album proper. So, you know, it's got Wasteland on it. I mean, what a banger of a goth song that is. I did say to myself, I should stop saying banger. But sometimes you just have to use it, don't you? So yeah, so Wasteland, Stay With Me, Severina, and I think that's the one that's got Julian Regan on backing vocals. Love Me to Death. It's just a really, really good album. So that was the debut, but they also did a lot of singles before that came out, and they gathered together on this one. So this is the first chapter. So this has got things like Serpent's Kiss, The Crystal Ocean, Gardener Delight, a really, really good thing there. Covers of Like Hurricane by Neil Young and Dancing Barefoot by Patti Smith. So good band, the Mishlock, a lighter version of goth. They kind of went all out with their second album to be as dark as they could, and this has got one of the best 80s singles in Tower of Strength. The rest of the album, though, didn't quite measure up to the debut for me, but with Tower of Strength, they created a monster of a song. But I always thought the production let this down a little bit. Other than that opening single, it was a bit of a murky, muddy album, but a good album, but it's not quite as good as the debut. So that was Wayne Hussey in that band. Now, for those that don't know, The Mission were born out of another band, which I'm going to go on to now. And this is the last band I'm going to talk about. And this, for me, is if there's a goth band of ultimate goth, it has to be this lot. So, of course, I'm going to talk about the Sisters of Mercy. So the Sisters of Mercy were going for a long, long time, and then briefly had Wayne Hussey and I think Craig Adams in the band, and did their debut album, which was this one called First and Last and Always. And if there's a kind of a lighter moment in the Sisters catalogue, this is probably it. So they commercialised up, which is why I think eventually Wayne Hussey and the other fella left, and Andrew Eldritch went off and he carried on doing his own thing. But this is a great album. So it's the debut proper: Black Planet, Walk Away, Marion, First and Last and Always. Just such a good proper goth darky album. And then they all fell out, and the Mission were originally going to be called the Sisterhood. And Andrew Eldritch got wind of that and was not going to let them trade using the name the Sisterhood, obviously off the back of the Sisters of Mercy. So he went out and stuck his own album out. So this is a little curio. It's a little kind of 5-track EP called Gift. And it's got a great opening track called Jihad on it, which was a bit ahead of its time. But that's worth finding if you can. I think it did get a reissue not long ago. So the Mission couldn't be called the Sisterhood, so they became the Mission. Now, before we go on to some of the later Sisters of Mercy's album, if you're going to get the most goth stuff, before the Sisters of Mercy did their debut album, they've been going for quite some time and did loads of EPs, and they are gathered together on this wonderful kind of album. And if you're gonna, I said about 3 albums, but I think the Cults Love, Bauhaus, if you can get that 79 to 83 compilation, and then if you can pick a copy of this up, I think you've got 3 of the ultimate 80s kind of Gothesque kind of things. But this is great. So this has got all those 12-inch singles compiled. There's a big list on the back there. I will show you this because it's a thing of beauty. So so this is the Sisters of Mercy's early singles, gathered together as Some Girls Wonder by Mistake. So it was a CD, and then it got this big kind of reissue. So you got the album proper here, which is like a nice gatefold, and that gathers together, and I'll show you all of those 12-inch singles as gathered there. So obviously you've got things like Alice, Temple of Love, The Damage Done. It's just, I think this one kind of goes backwards, so it starts with the most recent and goes back to the very early days. You also get a couple of extra kind of 12 inches, so you get the 1992 version of Temple of Love and Under the Gun. I think this was from 93, so great little box set, that one. So if you can track a copy of that down, Some Girls Wonder by Mistake, for me that's the ultimate kind of goth kind of album to have. So the Sisters, after they had that falling out and they came back with an absolutely brilliant album called Floodland, and it's National Album Day in the UK tomorrow, and this is getting a reissue then, so there is a posh version coming out. This is actually a nice little promo version just there. I'll be absolutely unsure, I've never noticed that before. So yeah, so great album. Obviously the big single was Dominion, but for me the ultimate goth classic was Lucretia. On the album it's just called Lucretia, but it's Lucretia My Reflection, isn't it? And that song has the dubious award of the last song I got up and danced to in a nightclub somewhere in Birmingham when I was probably a little bit older than I should have been. Had a few beers, as you do, and they played She Sells Sanctuary, followed up by Lucretia My Reflection, and I could not resist the urge to jump about the floor. I saw the Sisters of Mercy a few years back live in Birmingham again, and they're just so uncompromising. It literally was a wall of dry ice, lots of primary colours. I really couldn't see a thing because there was that much dry ice, but a great band. I do love the Sisters. And all their albums are good, to be fair. Here's another one, Vision Thing. So that's well worth getting. And they gathered up their later singles on this one. So this is called A Slight Case of Overbombing. So this... bit like the other one, starts at the most recent and goes backwards. So it starts with Under the Gun and ends up with 3 tracks from the First and Last and Always album. So well worth getting that. And if we're going to finish off, they did do a lot of BBC radio sessions. So this did get a Record Store Day release not too long ago. She's had some Peel sessions on from 82, Kid Jensen sessions from 83, and Peel sessions from 84. And I think the 4th side may well be etched or something like that. So well worth getting. So there you go. So that's the goth. That was actually 13 goth bands, because obviously you can't count Southern Death Cult and the Cults as 3. They're one band, aren't they, really? But yeah, if you can find this, go and grab it. Fabulous kind of era of music. And if there are any recommendations for stuff I might have missed, please do. You know, I didn't go down the heavy goth stuff. For me, the Nephilim were probably as heavy as I wanted to go. And I know there are other things out there like Alien, Sex Fiend and that type of stuff. But for me, the Sisters were probably the ultimate goth band. If you agree, please share your thoughts. If you disagree, share your thoughts. Thank you for those that are watching and have liked and subscribed. Still a new channel, but it has had quite a few new kind of people join recently, so thank you for those that are. And if you've watched this and made it through to 25 minutes, if you haven't already done so, please consider liking and subscribing because it's free. So yes, so that's the second goth video. We've done a Cura ranking. We've gone through 13 goths. Couple more to come, and I'll tell you about those next time. Thanks for watching.